All right, y'all. What it is, y'all, it is your old Professor Pilk, and I have been excited, just beyond excited for the Nintendo Switch 2 since we officially got, basically the announcement. Um, Back when the Switch Pro was a thing, it was what it was. It would be really cool to have new hardware and all that. The Switch is very dated. Like the original Switch, extremely dated. It was dated when it dropped, but it is like really coming up on the end of its like potential life cycle. So we needed a new console, and we needed a new console for a good minute. But I think really the time is nigh. Like the market could really bear a new console right now. It doesn't have to compete with the Xbox or the PlayStation. It doesn't have anything else in the market that is really like hard up against. People that want PS5s can finally get their hands on PS5s. Xboxes or whatever Xboxes are right now. There's new PC infrastructure coming out, but this really isn't something that's gonna, kind of cross market with that. So it's like the perfect time for a Switch 2. Except it's kind of not. So let's go over like all the things that are like great and kind of crap about this whole Switch debacle. And it's so incredibly frustrating. So first things first, yes, games are going to be $80. Some. Not all, some. And some games are even going to be up to $90 if you go for the physical copy. Now, there's a lot of talk right now about physical copies not being physical copies. And here's the thing. I fully 100% refuse to doubt that a lot of AAA studios out there wouldn't just put a download code on a cartridge and still upcharge you $10 for it. You need to check the back of your cases and your games before you buy them. Now, here's the deal. We already know now, thanks to CD Projekt Red, exactly how much capacity the first generation Switch cartridges are going to have. There are several different size cartridges out right now, but it seems like 64 gigs is the largest cartridge that is going to be available for the Switch 2, which isn't shocking. It's a good size cartridge, all things considered. And I don't see any reason why they couldn't double that in a year or two. Like, heck, they could probably do it now. They just, for whatever reason, did it in order to keep prices on the games down. Probably just keeping it at what it is. Downside is you are only going to be limited to 256 internal storage, and SDs are going to be whatever SDs are going to be. So there are some severe limitations, especially on the digital front. Because of that, and for a number of other reasons, I am a huge fan of getting physical copies. For those of you guys that don't know, I actually went out of my way. Some of you are subscribed to my other channel where we cover mostly Danmachi content. And when the new Danmachi Full End of Water and Light game came out, I went and hunted down an actual physical copy of it. And the only way to get that was to import it from Japan at a significant cost. But I did get this really cool collector's edition that's got books and stuff in it. So I am a big, avid believer in getting physical versions of games. And we were talking about this the other night on stream, and it seems like some games now they're saying are just going to be download codes. Kind of like with the PS5, where there are some games when you buy it, the disc is just a download code, or sometimes they don't even have a disc. You just buy the box, and there's a code inside. That does happen from time to time. I recently bought some PC games, and it was the same way. So that is a definite downside to this. And honestly, my answer to that is if on the back of all these boxes, there is going to be a little something that is going to tell you very specifically there is no physical media inside. I forget the exact wording. They've already leaked it out there. But before you buy a physical copy, check that box. Yes, upgraded versions of Switch games, namely like the Zelda game, probably Legend ZA, things like that, are apparently just going to, like, if you buy the upgrade to the Switch 2 version, pay the full retail market value, apparently that is just a serial code. That is it. So that severely diminishes the value of that. Now, I'll be completely honest with you. with the way the hardware is playing out, I really don't see a huge value in buying an upgraded package. Before you buy an upgraded game, make sure that you play the original game on there if it's at all possible. Like, there's quite a few games that are going to be backwards compatible. So play the game first and then see. I wouldn't be surprised if a later version of the Switch does lock out that capability. I hope not, but I wouldn't put it past Nintendo at this point. They're really going Sony with a lot of these just really poor decisions. It's not what I expect from Nintendo whatsoever. The good news is Scarlet and Violet apparently are getting a free update, so that's awesome. That's fantastic, and I love that. This is already something that's been beaten to death, but the fact that some games' physical copies aren't actually going to be physical copies is just a mind-bogglingly stupid idea. If you can't fit the full game on a cartridge, I don't know. Give us a bigger cartridge. Like, up. If these game devs were straight up and were like, hey, look, we're really sorry. This game is massive. This game is immense. I know, once again, CD Projekt Red specifically said that they've used every last drop of storage on the cartridge in order to bring Cyberpunk 2077 to the Switch. And it makes sense. But if those devs were realistic with us and said, hey, look, for the first-gen game, we have this 128 gig cartridge, but it's going to cost you an extra $20. I think if they were honest about that, a lot of people would be like, that's fine. It is what it is. It's a massive open world game. Sure, let's go with it. Now, in honesty, not a lot of games are going to be partaking in that, because they even said the new Donkey Kong game is like 10 gigs. I think Mario Kart World is like 20 gigs, even as big as that's supposed to be. So, there are, while it is a concerning point right now, it's apparently not that big of a deal. So there is that. Also, the cartridges are apparently going to taste bad. Yeah, it's a thing. It's legitimately a thing. So kids do put stuff in their mouths. Don't keep your cartridges where your kids can get at them. I got kids. I got young kids. It's never been a problem in my house. Just why? Anyway, I digress. So there's all this just weirdness going on with the Switch 2. That's not even to get to the price. We'll cover that here later on in the episode. So let's talk about the good stuff, right? Technologically, yes. Apparently, this is hardware-wise on par with a PS4 Pro, that's awesome. That is insane. And I've been saying for years and years and years that the mobile architecture, the mobile hardware that we have now is so many generations ahead of where the Switch was when it first dropped. We're not even in the same ballpark. It's like almost a decade's worth of technology it is a decade's worth of technology, but it is like the difference between, I don't know, an N64 and a PlayStation 4. It's really crazy. It's not quite that extreme, but it feels that way. It is insane, the capabilities and what we can actually build into all this like little tiny itty bitty hardware now. Just the ARM chips and things like that they're using are going to be immensely powerful. And this is really cool. I like that. I love seeing this technological jump. I love the idea that in so many years, we've basically gone from this big old chonker right here all the way down to something only slightly larger than this. And I think that is fantastic. And that's something that Nintendo really needs to just kind of tout, because the fact that they're able to put that level of technology into a handheld is insane. I remember when I was a kid and I first got my hands on a Game Gear and a Turbo Express handheld, for the 4 people that know what that is. To see that technology in your hands in the 90s was, how could how could they do this? Like, you pick up a Game Boy and then you pick up a Turbo Express handheld, and you're like, I don't understand how this is possible. But that's just what we're dealing with here. That is like the technological leaps that we are dealing with at this point in time. Once again, you're talking about 10 years of mobile architecture. Think about how far phones have come in those 10 years. That's literally the same technology. So it's mind-blowing what we're dealing with on a technological front. So crazy. But there are a lot of missteps here. There are a ton of missteps here. Specifically, this little C button right here. I remember when this was coming out, we were all like, well, what is the C button going to do? What is this thing? What is that thing? You know, how is all of this going to work? And when we got the Nintendo Direct, at first I was kind of like, okay, fine. It's a streaming button. Great, awesome. It's literally C for content. It makes sense. It's going to be a great way to open up the world of content creation to people that just don't have PCs to stream with, or, you know, really anything like that. We all mentioned in the live stream how much their architecture looked like Discord. I mean, and that makes sense because it's a platform that works. It's known to be good. You know, they've got microphones, they've got cameras, they've got all this other stuff now. This is awesome. Then we find out, and this is literally just in the last 24 hours, that every function that C button has is now going to be basically locked behind a paywall. Now, you're going to have to buy the camera, you're going to have to buy the microphone, and then you're going to have to pay a monthly subscription to use that button. And I think that is just insane. Absolutely bonkers. If you already have Nintendo Online, there's absolutely no reason why you'd have to pay extra to use that. It's incredibly insulting to tell your customer base that, yes, you're going to have to pay all this money for all this hardware, and then suddenly, now to use it that way, now you've got to pay a monthly subscription. I think that's crazy. That is just another mind-blowing misstep. I cannot believe that they are doing that to their customer base. Just crazy. Also, apparently they're not implementing any technology to prevent Joy-Con drift, and they're showing off this new mouse mode, which apparently that's going to be a huge issue. I'm a bit concerned. So I love the fact that they made the buttons metal. So the buttons are actually basically like the magnets that hold the controllers into the actual Switch base set. I like that, but I'm worried that the magnetic like link isn't going to be strong enough, or at some point is going to fail, or there's just too many potential missteps there. I know magnets don't like stop working per se, but if, you know, oil or grease or something gets on the button, I've got kids with sticky fingers, you know, like, you just never know any particular situation like that. Plus, who knows what these Joy-Cons are going to cost now? Like, they're going to be significantly more expensive than the current Joy-Cons. And I know that the answer is, like, go get a Pro Controller or whatever, but that's not an option for every single person. We're also now hearing that there's, like, 100 some odd games that are going to have major compatibility issues with the Switch 2. So it's not truly backwards compatible. There's a lot, but it's not, like, ultimately that crazy backwards compatible. It's just... Switch 2 pre-sales were supposed to go live on Wednesday. And that's not even a thing anymore. But this is not Nintendo's fault whatsoever. In fact, already currently in the UK and in other countries, the pre-sales are going live right now. Things are out there. I do love what Nintendo is doing to combat the scammers and to combat the bots. I think we'll see how well that works out. It's not a perfect system, but I think it's a better system than most are even attempting. So I really do appreciate that. You know, once again, for every step forward, I feel like there's just 2 steps back. And I think the biggest nail in the coffin for the Switch right now, and it's going to suck, but is the fact that now, even though we were already a little on edge about the system being $450, you're now not going to be able to get one for $450, it seems. At the current, all the estimates I've seen, I dropped an estimate myself the other day. The current estimates I've been seeing are north of $600, which is just insane. Just completely insane. And on top of that, there's already mentioned that the Switch in Japan is $100 cheaper than the original asking price that they were projecting. But that Switch is region locked, and there's a couple other caveats to that. All this is just really just us gamers driving us completely insane. All we want is a piece of hardware that works and does its job. And I know that the price is not something that Nintendo has any control over. It just feels like, like we tried this with the Switch Pro, and then, obviously supply chain issues and all that. They then released the OLED instead. It is what it is. No real big upgrade in hardware, just a slightly better-ish screen. So it was really, really time. But this is really bad timing overall. And we're going into a global recession. It's just exhausting. I've been watching the Switch 2 news now for days. And I've been so excited for this product for so long. And now it just feels like every single time that we're like about to get some good news, something else comes out of the woodwork. And it's just like, oh yeah, by the way, this is just a huge downside to it. It's just infuriating. So my question to you guys, are you even hyped anymore for the Nintendo Switch 2? Or have we just been kicked around so much at this point, a lot of us are just going to kind of wait and see what happens with it before we finally decide to adopt? For me personally, and I know I haven't even touched on everything, there's just so much. Like every 5 minutes you hear something else that makes you just groan and just, why would we do this to ourselves? But is anybody out there still excited for the Switch 2, or are we all just kind of over it and ready to move on to, let it launch, let it happen. Who cares if the scalpers get a hold of it? The 1% of people that actually care anymore can get theirs, pay a scalper the price, and the rest of us are going to wait a year or two until the tariffs are no longer a thing or whatever. I still definitely want one, but I'm telling you guys right now, if it's like $600, I'm not paying that for a console. I'm absolutely. If I pay that for a console, it better be something really old, really retro, and really rare. And even then, it better be something really, really special. As a big buyer of vintage and rare video games, I've even seen that market really start to fall apart. And so it's really just, it's so hard to justify buying a Switch 2 in 2025. But I want to hear from you guys, because I want to know what you guys think. I'm just super on the fence about it. Anyway, that's my rant. Like, share, comment, all those good things. And we'll be back with more Pokemon soon.